Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Are you fed up of stuff like this scaled agile safe framework? Are you fed up of the agile release train? Choo choo, let's get on that train. Are you fed up of stuff like this? Scrum, Scrum Masters, product owners, and you're being browbeaten about agile. Well, this video is for you. I've been a software developer for 15 years. I've seen good Scrum, bad Scrum, good Agile and bad Agile. And I'm here to try and save you from the pain that I've been through. Let's begin by talking about what Scrum is not about, okay? This is not Scrum. If anybody tells you this is Scrum, they're lying. It's not about story points. It's not about burn down charts. And it's not about getting 100% accurate estimates for that project manager. What Scrum actually is about is the team, yeah, okay? And it's about getting the team to do predictable release cadence, which means you ship something at a predictable cycle and everybody's happy with the team. It's about communication and trust within that team and with the stakeholders around that team. And it's about allowing the team to manage themselves. That's all it is. But there are good and bad types of Scrum. And the good type I call High Trust Scrum. Yeah, High Trust Scrum, where you are the trusted partners for the business. And there's also Low Trust Scrum. You are the untrusted labour. You are hired hands. You're there just to get those tickets across the line. Now I know what you're thinking. How do I know I'm in a low trust environment? Well, if any of these things are true, it's a low trust environment. And oh my God, it's the project manager guy. He's back. Hi mate. He's back from the last video. And he says something like, I need an hourly estimate for that task, please. Yeah, this is low trust. How many tickets will you complete this sprint? I need to tell the stakeholders in advance exactly what they're going to get and when. Low trust, yeah. And this other guy in another team said it should only take 2 hours. So why do you say it's going to take 3? This is low trust, and this is not a fun environment to work in. You need to stay away from people like this. But why do people put up with low trust environments? Because it should be implicit that the dev team is working to the best of their abilities. And if they're not, they're just not incentivized correctly. Their success is not aligned with the project's success. And if this is the case, then how are they supposed to be successful? But if you're stuck in a low trust Scrum environment, you need to build that trust, okay? And these are some things you should do. You can make commitments and then actually follow through with those commitments. You should do what you say you're going to do by the time you say you're going to do it. And you keep doing this until trust is built. Okay? Don't make commitments that you can't meet or you're not 99% certain that you're going to meet, all right? And don't let other people make commitments for you. Most of the time, this is a trap. When a project manager says the team has committed to do this by this point and you haven't actually said it with your own lips, this is a trap, okay? And the way you do this is through a system of sprint goals, not story points. But what makes a good sprint goal? All right, what makes a good sprint goal? And oh, he's back. It's Klein, our full stack dev from one of the previous videos. And he makes goals like this. He says, I'm going to implement the import functionality this sprint. That's it. That's what he says. It doesn't say he's going to take 32 user stories to get there. He says, I'm going to upgrade and test all the packages this sprint. And that could be a little bit wishy-washy on the all, but that's a decent goal. And he's going to say something like, allow the user to log in and save a record. That's a whole user story there. And obviously he writes user stories to keep the documentation gremlins happy along the way, but overarching on a sprint, there is a goal. Of course, what do bad sprint goals look like? Well, he's back. He's back. Oh no, he's back. He says the goal is to fix 20 bugs. The goal is to fix all the bugs. Or the goal is to complete more story points than the last sprint. This, my friends, is a trap. And the reason he does this is so he can say things like this. You said you'd do 23 tickets this sprint, but you only did 22. Therefore, you are a failure. Never mind getting them all done, or 22 done on time. You failed your sprint targets, okay? Your team's a failure. Let's talk about it in the retrospective where we will have a therapy session and find out just what it takes to let you do 23 tickets instead of 22. Nonsense this is. And you think, story points, well, I want some story points. Well, they're bad, okay? They're bad. They're not a measure of anything. They're actually there to get maximum utilization out of a dev team. They're meant to, there to fine-tune their inputs so they can get maximum outputs, like some sort of factory robot machine. There's no such thing as a story point in the Agile Manifesto, okay? It's made up by people that bastardized Scrum. They don't take into account things that can go wrong during a sprint, and ultimately they're used against the development team. Used against the development team. You say, well, when our project manager goes to his project status update meeting with the stakeholders, he comes in with his burn down chart like this, yeah? And he says, we're on track for delivery. I'm a great manager. That's what it's for, okay? There's no benefit to do this. If the team says they will ship on a certain date, they're going to ship on a certain date or they will lose their jobs. That's it. Because he can do this, he can also do it the other way around. If he comes around and he's upset, his burn down chart is upside down. Oh, God. Okay. The developers are underperforming. We need to work them harder. Yeah. By the way, I've got some mates in the third world who can do it for half the price. Let's talk about that. Now, I know I rag on this guy quite a bit because he's a bit of a thing. But what does a good project manager look like? Okay. So a good project manager is an agent for your team. All right. An agent. He acts as a go-between between the interests of the developers, the ones dedicating several months of their short times on planet Earth to getting this software out the door, and the people that are paying for it, the stakeholders, or those customers. And they also don't call themselves a Scrum Master. If anybody calls themselves a Scrum Master in 2024, 25, 26, run for the hills. It's a week-long course. It teaches you nothing about software development. Obviously, then, a bad project manager. Yeah, like this guy. Yeah. He pushes for maximum efficiency. This is a machine. Okay. This isn't people doing the best work of their lives. It's a machine. All right. And he appears to be working in the interests of the stakeholder only. He's not on your side. If you get a whiff of this, bad project manager. And he can't trust anybody. All right. He needs those metrics to essentially be able to assign blame if something doesn't go according to plan. So what are sprint goals? I hear you ask. Well, the sprint goals are individual steps needed to get to your final shippable product, whatever that may be. All right. If this is something that hasn't shipped yet, you know what it needs to look like. So you can break that down into individual sprints. Just give each sprint a theme. You've got 10 sprints, 10 themes, roughly in order. All right. It's not waterfall. You can plan, even with Agile. Yeah, you should plan with Agile. But these are not set in stone commitments. You can readjust as you get more information or you go faster or slower. Okay, it's not the end of the world if we're running a sprint behind schedule, because in the last 5 sprints, something might come up where you suddenly save a sprint of time. You have no idea. And estimates, the longer you make them in advance, the less accurate they are going to be. But I know what you're saying. You can't fit a feature in a sprint. This feature needs 3 sprints. Yeah, okay. But you can do some of it in a sprint. Yeah, you can commit and get into the code base something that's not quite finished and hide it behind a feature flag. Just turn it off. It's far better that it's actually integrated into the software earlier than a developer disappears for 3 sprints and comes back in and tries to merge in a load of changes. Break it down and get it into sections. Maybe do the back end first, get that in, then the front end, whatever, however you want to slice it. It is possible, okay? The goal of each sprint is to have a shippable piece of software. You don't actually have to ship it, especially if the software is not finished yet. And you can deploy and get into the software something that's half finished. Just put it up behind a feature flag. The next complaint about Scrum, now Scrum isn't necessarily bad, just bad Scrum is, all right, is my stand-ups are too long. They're too long. I have to talk to people for 30 minutes. Don't care. That 30 minutes can be good, all right? You can afford to sync up with your team once a day. Chat about the weather. Make some friends. You know, especially if you're remote and you're going to go dark for another 7.5 hours of the day. It's worth talking to people. You don't have to make it a formal, what have you done, what are you going to do, any blockers only discussion, okay? Sit down if it's too tiring, all right? Don't let senior management into these things, because this turns it into a high pressure, high stakes, I must demonstrate my worth on every single morning. This is such a bad habit, and it's ideally it would only be the dev team, okay? that is in there. And the project manager, if he has to, if he insists, then fine. But, the project manager can just talk to the tech lead out of band or watch the tickets move across the board if they need a status update. But the stand-up should be just a team building exercise ultimately. But you also say, I need my scaled agile. I've got 10 Scrum teams. Fine. How do I coordinate multiple teams? That's the neat part. You don't. You don't do it. There is no point. A team should be able to ship their piece of the software independently. And that software alone should have some value in it. Do not do a three-legged race and tie the legs of different teams together, because all good software is built by small, high-performance, independent teams. Great, you say. Fine. What about the deadlines? Yeah, this isn't just a party. Well, fine, but not all deadlines are real. So let's play a game. We've got our project manager, and he's going to come up with a deadline reason, and we're going to go, is this real or is this fake? I promised the boss you'd get this done by this date. Okay? This does get said, all right? Real or fake? It's fake. Yeah? Fake. This is not a real deadline. Okay? His promises are not your promises. Do not let somebody bounce your personal commitments to do something, to meet commitments that they've made. It's just rude, ultimately. Next up, he says, the budget for this project runs out on this date. Okay? Now, assuming he's telling the truth, this is a real deadline. The money's going to run out, so we need to get everything done by this date. That's fine. That's a real business reason. Sometimes you might say, our competitor has this feature coming out, and we also need the same thing, or we won't be competitive and we'll lose some market share. This, believe it or not, yes, this is a real deadline. Everybody should be incentivized to beat your competitors. That's the market. He might also say something like this. Performance reviews are coming up, guys. It'd be great if we could get this done. And obviously, the cadence of your software should not be tied to your internal performance reviews. This is fake. Now, this might come as a bit of a shock for somebody as cynical as me, okay? But sprints are okay. They're okay, guys, all right? Because they focus the team on a deliverable. It's only once every 2 weeks that you actually have to get something finished. It's not the end of the world, all right? You do have to do some work. I'm not saying that developers should just be lazy, okay? And they allow a repeatable cycle of trust to build within the organization, within your team, and with the customer and your team, all right? By shipping repeatedly. And for a software project that isn't Amazon or Netflix and doesn't have a super mature deployment cycle, this allows you to have a period of time where your software is a little bit unstable. And let me talk about that. So this is the chart of sprint cycle instability. I try and draw this out for project managers quite often, okay? So this is the beginning of the sprint, all right? And this is the end of the sprint. In the middle of the sprint, expect bugs. We're working on it. We might have merged some code, and the QA's found some bugs. That's okay. But you're not going to ship the software in the middle of the sprint, all right? For most people, there's going to be builds of the software that don't work. But the idea of a sprint cycle is that as you near the end of the sprint, final few days, you tidy up all the loose ends, make sure that the build is decent enough to promote to the next testing environment or whatever. It's not rocket science. Yeah, I know. I don't need to use Scrum because I do continuous integration. Then fine, use Kanban instead, all right? If you have a full regression test suite, you can be 100% confident that your entire piece of software is perfect on every commit. Great. Knock yourselves out. You are mature enough to do continuous delivery. And then you don't need sprints, do you? You can just ship all the time, like Amazon does to their homepage, whatever. That's cool. But most people are not in that scenario. And you only need to do this if you need to ship several times a day. All right? You're running some big thing, then fine. You're hyper mature. You probably don't even need this video. All right? That's okay. But this also requires a high amount of technical trust. And ultimately, the tech organization will probably be running most of the business at this point. So ultimately, this is about high trust Scrum versus low trust Scrum. All right? If you're going into an environment of low trust Scrum, you're going to be demanded to do accurate estimates, held up on them. You're going to find your work put on charts. It's insane, okay? So if you're starting a new project with a new project manager, I highly recommend you steer it towards High Trust Scrum, at least to start. Obviously, if you burn or abuse that trust, he's going to start turning the screws and he's going to want story points and so on. But let's start with High Trust Scrum, yeah? Let's everybody trust each other to do the best job they can. All right, that was a bit of advice from the Scrum trenches out there. If you found it useful, don't forget to leave a like. If you didn't like it, thought it was rubbish, press the like button 3 times, which is a YouTube super dislike. I also have a playlist, which I'm going to try and put up there somewhere, with more sort of general advice for developers, like how to get a job, what full stack devs are, and so on. So there's might be some stuff up there. If not, click my face to subscribe, and I'll be a happy camper. Thanks for watching.